Electric cars should be exempt from Brexit tariffs in trade between the EU and Great Britain for another 3 years. Don't party too hard, that's what the Brussels Commission is proposing. The EU states still have to agree, and the EU Commission wants to postpone those Brexit tariffs for electric cars and batteries for 3 years now. That is why it was proposed to member countries that they should be exempt from customs rules when trading with Great Britain for this period. The EU states must now approve the proposal with a qualified majority, and this requires the consent of at least 15 of the 27 EU states. And these must simultaneously represent at least 65% of the EU population. Due to Britain's exit from the EU, new customs rules should actually come into force on January 1st in 2024, and vehicles whose value creation was less than 45% in EU or Great Britain would then have been subject to a tariff of 10%. And this would affect manufacturers who do not achieve the value-added ratio for electric cars due to a lack of battery production capacity. According to the Commission's proposal, the regulation, which can lead to tariffs, will only apply from 2027. Great Britain left the European Union at the end of January 2020, and the reason for the tariffs are the so-called rules of origin in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, which has formed the basis for cooperation with the EU since 2021. Without a delay, EU manufacturers would have had problems sourcing batteries and other urgently needed parts for electric cars from Great Britain. And Brussels originally relied on significantly increased battery production in the European Union itself. But the COVID crisis and the Ukraine war prevented this, according to them. At least they say that in Brussels. British car manufacturers, on the other hand, fear tariffs from next year on the important EU export market to no longer be competitive. And German car manufacturers would also be affected by tariffs when exporting to Great Britain in the future, if they are not continued to be suspended. The Association of the Automotive Industry, the VDA, has already described the taxes as a significant disadvantage for European companies compared to their Asian competitors in the important market in the United Kingdom. Association President Hildegard Müller responded positively to the EU Commission's announcement on Wednesday. Oh, of course she did. This decision is the right one and a win for the climate industry and consumers, she said. The proposal must now be implemented as quickly as possible by the EU states and the United Kingdom. Both British car manufacturers and the German auto industry will benefit from the extension of the rules of origin, emphasized Mark Lehnfeld from the federally owned company Germany Trade and Invest GTI. In German-British trade, foreign trade in cars, parts and engines accounts for around 22% this year. It is the most important group of goods. Now the British automotive industry can regain confidence, said Lehnfeld. The German automotive industry can also benefit from this shift. And Germany is the British country's most important supplier of fully electric vehicles and hybrids. And you know why the British also want this so much? In the middle of the last decade, Britain's car industry seemed to be on the rise, and since then, production has fallen rapidly. And there is a reason for that. Around 6 years after the Brexit referendum, Great Britain's car industry is in crisis. In 2021, vehicle production fell below the 1 million car mark for the first time since 1953, as the consulting firm Innovev has determined. In the years before the decision to leave, the British car industry had experienced an upswing. In 2016, 1.8 million vehicles were built on the island. Since then, things have gone downhill year after year. In addition to the direct and indirect consequences of Brexit, the corona pandemic and the resulting supply chain problems also played a role in those poor results. The largest car manufacturer in Great Britain in 2021 was Nissan, with a 21% share of the number of vehicles built. Land Rover and Mini followed with 20% each. Toyota only got 14% after the Japanese stopped production except for the Corolla. Honda, previously a large manufacturer, only had a production share of 6% after the Swindon factory was closed. And of course, the British car industry is worried here as well. And I know why the German car industry is putting pressure on. But I still think the agreement of the EU member states would be a mistake here. They were given a lot of time, like the British government in other places where they were postponing transitional periods over and over again, like the introduction of checks on the border that we are expecting now for next year. That's happening in the EU for years now. They just haven't done their homework. And this would set a very bad example also for the negotiation of other trade deals with other countries, still the negotiation with the Mercosur deal and other things. And this would not be good. Why the Commission is doing that, I can understand. But it would be a grave mistake if the member states agree to this. But we will see what the decision will be. When I'm filming this video, they haven't made a decision yet. And I hope they don't. But the resistance was not big enough to stop a majority vote, I guess. But I'm quite sure it will not be unanimous. Well, if I'm wrong, I will not understand the EU anymore. But nevertheless, if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.